Hello, Northern California anglers. I'm Kel Kellogg, and it's time for This Week in Fishing. This week, we're going to be taking an in-depth look at Stampede Reservoir. We're going to have reports on Golden Gate salmon, San Francisco Bay halibut and stripers, and Wes Ward's going to be out on the waters of Clear Lake talking bass fishing. Get ready for that and a whole lot more. It's time for This Week in Fishing. Here we go, folks. Howdy folks, it's that time again. It's time for my weekly fishing report on This Week in Fishing. And this week, we're going to skip right over all the freshwater action. We're going to do some supplemental videos this week covering things like Berryessa kokanee, New Maloney's kokanee, Elminor trout, all that freshwater stuff. It's outstanding, but today we're going to talk about the best bite in the state, and that is Golden Gate saltwater fishing. And there's really two bites going on down there. While the bottom fish action is excellent outside the Golden Gate, nobody's even thinking about lingcod and rockfish right now, because outside the gate there is a rip-roaring red-hot salmon bite underway, and inside the bay the live bait potluck action, it just doesn't get any better. In fact, I'm thinking this is some of the best fishing I've seen in probably 20 years for anglers in the Golden Gate region. Let's start off with the salmon fishing. Last Friday, I joined 28 anglers aboard the New Easy Rider. We motored out into the ship channel and we found a salmon right away. I had a limit of fish, while trolling. Within the first hour, I had a 14 and a 9 in the box. People caught salmon all around me all day long. It took us about 5 hours to boat 30 limits of salmon. That's 60 king salmon. Top fish was probably 20, 21 pounds, something like that. There were whales, there were porpoise, there was clouds of bait, lots of brown water. It was epic salmon fishing. It's been like that every day. If you haven't been out, now is the time to go. You never know how long an ocean salmon bite's gonna hold up, and it is just crazy fast action right now. I want to throw big props out to the crew of the New Easy Rider. They are incredible salmon anglers. We're trolling. People are using the big, cannonball weights. There's a lot of lines in the water. We landed those 60 keepers, and I don't think we lost a dozen fish, and that's all about the crew. They're quick. They're Johnny on the spot. They've got great attitudes. They were helping people weave through the other lines. They were flat out putting fish in the box for their customers, and it was a great time. It was a great day. Lots of laughs, lots of smiles. We were ribbing each other. It was a good time. So, Coop, AK, those are the deckhands. You guys do a great job. And Captain Joey Gallia, he needs no introduction, man. He is one of the best in the business. I've been salmon fishing with him for years, and if there is a salmon around, he's gonna get it on a hook. And when there's a lot of salmon around, he's just a dynamite skipper. So anyway, salmon fishing. Jump on a boat, get after them. Doesn't get any better than it is right now. It is incredible fishing. Now, inside the bay, the live bait potluck action, it's amazing. I mean, I don't have enough superlatives to describe the action. I'm going to be out there next week. I can't wait. Full limits of stripers, fast limits of stripers up to about 14, 15 pounds is the norm every single day. And the average on halibut is 2 per rod. Charter boats are landing between 100 and 120 keeper fish every single day. It's unbelievable action. I mean, you're taking home big sacks of meat. You go out there and catch 2 stripers, 2 halibut, maybe a 3rd halibut, maybe you get limits of halibut and stripers, 5 total fish. It doesn't get any better than that. It's fun fishing. You don't have to worry about getting seasick, short rides, and if you've never done it, the live bait drifting, it's just a hoot. You get a lot of action. You never know what's going to be at the end of your line. It's probably going to be a striper or a halibut. You could get a leopard shark. You could get a white sea bass. You could get just about anything. So, if you don't want to go out in the ocean after salmon, or maybe your freezer's full of salmon already because you've been partaking in that excellent action, jump on a charter boat. Go get some halibut. Get some stripers. Just good stuff, man. So now is the time to head down to the Golden Gate, to the Bay Area region, jump on a boat and get your fish on, because that is the best fishing region of the entire state right now. Lots of big fish, lots of options. Bottom line is, if you go, you jump on a charter boat, you're gonna be taking home a big sack of fish and some real fond memories. So that's my report for this week. Saltwater action, red hot for Bay Area anglers. Get on a boat and get after it.
Hey guys, Wes Ward here. Hey, I'm coming to you from the Fish Hunt Shoot bunker where I'm working up this week's video as always. But I just got off the water from just an awesome 2 days hanging out with the family and on the water this weekend. Spent Saturday at Lake Mendocino where I didn't fish because honestly it's not a great place to fish. It's okay, but spent the day just pulling my kids around on the tube, running around the lake. We totally just pulled into the day use area, set up for the day, had a picnic going, lawn chairs out, enjoyed the sun. It wasn't terribly hot, but we spent the whole day on the water, which was pretty cool. So my kids got wet, they got drug all over the lake, they dug that. But Sunday was my fishing day. So obviously right up the road from Mendocino on Highway 20 is one of my favorite fisheries that I just simply don't make it to often enough, and that's Clear Lake. I'm a bass guy at heart. I love bass fishing. So anytime I get an opportunity to spend the day bass fishing, I'm all over it. So we got on the water. It was about 9 o'clock, 9:15 when we rolled off the launch in Lucerne. Immediately headed to one of my favorite points of the lake, which is the northwest corner, really between the corner at Nice and down to Rodman Slough. It's a huge line of tules. There's a lot of lay down trees in the water. There's 2 island humps there. It's a pretty cool area of the lake that you can fish pretty far from shore and still only be a few feet deep, and cast far and cover a lot of water and cover it quickly, and it typically holds a ton of fish. However, unfortunately for us, we spent a couple hours in that area for nothing. A million carp rolling on the surface. They're spawning in force right now, and there's some pretty good sized ones out there. But as far as the bass go, it was just nothing. Just vast nothingness. We threw everything we had in the boat. Swim jigs, chatterbaits, spinner baits, plastics, top water. Just wasn't working for us. So made a change, ran over to the Lakeport side, which is more docks, structure fishing, a lot more structure. There's a lot of pilings, there's a lot of rock piles. You're basically fishing right off of people's backyards. But typically fish hold in that area, and we found a few fish. I got my first fish of the morning on a brush hog right off the end of a point. There was a metal piling and some riprap on it, and pulled a nice bass off of that. Good way to start the day. It came later than I wanted it to, but I was hoping that would kind of set the course. We were seeing fish everywhere. It was almost like sight fishing, but you could whack them on the head with everything in the box. They weren't biting, and I'm not sure why. There was a ton of hitch in the area, bait everywhere, birds on the water everywhere. It seemed fishy and active. We just couldn't get a bite. So ultimately, we ended up running over near the state park, between Canocti and the state park, kind of Canocti corner near Lakeport. And I found one dock. It was half in the shade. It was in about 3 feet of water, and the weeds were really, really thick. So I just flipped a brush hog up into it, and boom, right away, fish on. And it was a good fish, probably one of my best of the day. It was right at 3 pounds, which isn't great, but you know, for a 3 pound fish, it's not bad. I was hoping for an 8 or 9, but we didn't get anything that big. But consecutive 2 casts after that fish was landed, I had 2 more. So 3 on 3 casts on one little dock in just one little corner. I thought I was onto something. And we continued that pattern. We were fishing basically in the shade in about 2 feet of water between the docks and the shore. And most of the shoreline, there's houses in that spot. It was rock walls, 3 feet of water, and then the dock. And as long as it was in the shade, it was holding fish. And we finished out our day, last couple hours, pretty constant barrage of fish on the deck. Had a good time doing it. It wasn't, you know, we didn't score the lunker that you're always looking for at Clear Lake. But after a couple hours of struggling and then finding a pretty good decent bite midday, I was happy with that. I want to show you really quick the rig that I was using that did eventually get us those bites and find the active fish, because it's the only thing that worked for us all day after throwing everything in the tackle box. I'm definitely a plastics guy. I've always fished with plastics. When things get tough, that's my go-to. There's no doubt I always have a Texas rig with me, and if that's all I could fish with all the time, that would be the one rig I'd have anytime. So my setup for the day was pretty straightforward, and if you can't see these, I'll flash some pictures up on the screen. Standard 6-inch brush hog. This is not the baby brush hog. This is the big brush hog. It's in a watermelon green pattern. That's pretty much the only pattern I use. I have some black ones I'll put on in different light levels, but for what we were doing midday, that worked really well. It's on a 1/4 ounce sliding sinker, and it is pegged. You can see that I pegged the sinker. That's pretty standard fare. Nothing special about that. It's a 3/0 hook. This is the heavy gauge Gamakatsu hook and 30-pound braid. Pretty much all of my plastics, flipping, pitching, minimum 30-pound braid. That's kind of my go-to. No leader material, just Palomar it right onto the knot and get your sliding sinker on there. If I use a baby brush hog, I'll probably downside the sinker a little bit, but I'm not afraid to throw 1/4 ounce all day, even in super shallow water. But one trick I want to let you know about that I do often, I'm a fan of the Carolina rig. I'm not a fan of all the tackle and how hard it is to tie, not hard, but how long it takes to tie and retie on the boat. And there's sometimes when you want something to pitch or flip that you don't want the leader between the weight and the bait. And there's sometimes when you can tie a Carolina rig and make the bait flutter slower through the water column, which is pretty much what it allows you to do. The weight hits the bottom and then the bait flutters down behind it. So one thing I typically do is I'll put a bobber stop in front of the weight, but I also put one right behind it. And so you can see that my bait's back here and that weight's stuck between two bobber stops. And what that allows me to do is anytime I want to slow the bait's fall in the water, I can just pull the weight away from the bait and peg it. And then I have basically a simple Carolina rig without any terminal tackle and not having to retie anything. And you can increase the leader to whatever length you want it to be. And then if you turn around and decide you want to flip or pitch to a tree or something specific behind you where you don't want that leader, you simply slide it back and it's pegged back in place. There's a couple disadvantages. Yes, it absolutely moves. You have to reset the leader probably every 2 to 3 casts, especially if it's very weedy and you're fishing it in like the longer leader size, because it will slide back eventually. But sometimes I'll put those bobber stops really far apart and I'll let the weight have quite a bit of movement. And if the fish are off the bite or really finicky or just picking at it, or sometimes it's just small fish, that amount of slack just lets them hold on to that bait for a split second longer, so you just have a little instant longer to set the hook. And sometimes that makes the difference between catching something and not catching something. But just my tip for the day, 2 bobber stops, one in front, one behind. Gives you a lot of versatility on a brush hog. You can swim it, you can flip it, pitch it, you can fish it vertically, jig it, and then you can also rig it as a Carolina rig and just drag it slowly on the bottom, lifting it over, logs and that kind of stuff as you go. Not a lot of rocks at Clear Lake, but sometimes you find a rock pile that's holding fish. So that's my Clear Lake report. Had an awesome day. If you get a chance to go out there, it's still one of the most phenomenal bass fisheries on the West Coast, and one of the best in the nation still. And soon the bloom's going to start. So it was very weedy. When the bloom starts, the bite's going to turn off very quickly. But I think for the next 30 days or so, there's definitely a chance to get out there, and you always have the opportunity to catch a huge one. So stay tuned. We got more coming up. Thanks.
Over here. Move. Move. Over here. Move. Move. Howdy folks, Kel Kellogg here. You see how quickly Lucy fell off the boat and was in the water? I don't care if you're an Olympic athlete. I don't care if you play in the NFL. I don't care if you're a tight wire walker. That dog is more agile, has better reflexes, and is a lot better swimmer than you are. And that's why when you're on a boat or when you're at the river or whatever, you need to be wearing a life jacket. You need to be wearing your personal flotation device, and you need to be prepared for the worst. Lucy always wears her vest when she's on the boat. She's been on boats and kayaks, canoes, aluminum sleds, charter boats, all that stuff. She's been on there her whole life, and boom, just like that, she was in the water. I have a tether on her and reeled her in, no problem. I had a good laugh about it. She got cooled off. Everything was fine. But whenever you're on the water or near dangerous water, you need to be wearing your life jacket. And here's the one I wear. Here's the one I wear. You always see me in the kayak. It is my NRS. Yeah, NRS. I always mess that name up. Chinook, okay? Now, it has a special back that's really good for kayaking. It has a high back. If you wear a standard PFD in a kayak, the back tends to ride up on your neck. It's totally doable. This is just a lot more comfortable. This is also the one I wear when I'm out in a standard, aluminum sled or whatever, bass boat, doesn't matter. This is the life jacket I wear. I really like it for fishing because it's set up for anglers. Look at all those pockets, and I'll share with you a little bit of what I got in here and on here. Has a lot of anchor points, has a lot of pocket space. Right here, right on the front, I'll move up close. I've got a connection point there. I've got a little sharp finger blade from Buck Knives right there in case I need to cut some braid or, whatever. I've got a little blade for cutting, and I've got my Angler West TV, little snips. Justin Wolf gave me that a few years ago up on the Columbian, and those things are fantastic. It's got a, I don't know what you call that, but it's like it like retrieves the line. It like jumps back in there, so that's really convenient. It goes like that. So that hangs there. I'm ready to cut line or cut whatever. Probably cut my finger before I'm done. But anyway, I'm ready to cut stuff. Up here in this pocket, it has a key connector. That's where I keep my car keys. Snap them on there. Not going to lose them. Not going to lose them. Even if my kayak floats away and I end up in the water, I'm going to have my car keys so I can get home. Down here, in this pocket I keep my cell phone. Over here in this pocket I carry a very important piece of gear. If you're hiking, fishing, boating, whatever, and you're out by yourself, you need one of these. It is my ACR personal locator beacon. It's expensive. It's $300. I rip that rubber band off there, deploy the antenna, and press the panic button. Search and rescue's coming to get me, and it has a strobe light in it. If I'm out on the water and my kayak flips and I hit that button, it's waterproof, I have a strobe light attached to me. So when they come to get me in the helicopter, they're going to say, "Look at that strobe light down there. I'll bet it's the guy who hit the panic button." So very important piece of gear. It's just smart. My wife insisted that I get this a few years ago on a hunting trip, and I use it just about every day, whether I'm hiking, fishing, whatever. It's just nice knowing that you have a satellite, link to search and rescue if you need it, and that is attached to my life jacket. So that's about the size of it. So the bottom line is, if you're going to be out on the water, or even if you're taking your dog out on the water, and of course your kids, everybody needs to be wearing a life jacket. Doesn't matter. This is like a $100 life jacket here. It's a little expensive, but I'm on the water a lot. I don't care. Go to Walmart and get a $19 one. Get the Type 3 adult life jacket and wear it. It'll save your life, and you'll be out there fishing again real soon. Whereas if you fall in and you don't have this on, don't kid yourself, you're not that good of a swimmer. You can't deal with the cold water. You're not in high school anymore, and even if you were, you're not as good of a swimmer as you think. In an emergency situation, you're going to fall in, you're going to die. Been at the Fish Niffer for 16 years, not a year goes by when I don't have someone call me and say, "Could you put out the word, I'm looking for my fill in the blank, uncle, wife, daughter, son, cousin, nephew, whatever. Oh, they were just right over here by the boat ramp and they fell in." and they disappeared and they're gone. And they're not looking to rescue them. They're looking to recover the remains. So don't screw around, get serious, get a good life jacket and actually wear it. Lucy and I do. She's a dog. She's not that smart. She wears her life jacket. I insist on it. Anyway, and I wear mine as well. So I've preached long enough. Get a life jacket. I can't afford to lose a viewer. Can't afford to lose a subscriber. So wear that jacket and get home alive. Anyway, that's the tip for this week. I'll catch you next time right here on YouTube. Howdy folks, I'm Kel Kellogg, and this is my new fishing hat. Actually, I'm kidding. I'm doing some chores today. I'm getting ready to do a bunch of weed whacking. I'm just like you. I can't be out on the water every day. Some days I got to do some chores. But nevertheless, it is time for This Week in Fishing special destination feature. And today we're going to take a look at Stampede Reservoir. Stampede is one of the most beloved fisheries in the Central Sierra. It's located right outside the town of Truckee, California. Access is great. Highway 80 runs right past the lake, so a lot of people visit the lake from as far away as the Bay Area. A lot of anglers from Sacramento, a lot of guys from Reno visit the lake. It's a relatively small reservoir. It has about 3,300 surface acres and 25 miles of shoreline. The lake features a good boat ramp. It has parking for about 100 boat trailers, and there are lots of camping opportunities, dotting the lake. There's several different campgrounds, whether you're camping in a tent, you're taking a cab over camper, or a full-blown RV, you'll find a spot at Stampede Reservoir. The centerpiece of the fishing at Stampede revolves around kokanee. Stampede is a critical lake in terms of the state's kokanee fishing because it's one of the lakes that produces the brood stock, the eggs, that fuels fisheries all around the state. That's where they go to extract eggs. They take them back to the hatchery. They raise small kokanee and they release them at various locations around the state. The kokanee population in Stampede is robust by any measure. In fact, a lot of anglers right now are complaining. They think there's actually too many kokanee in the lake. They're catching a lot of sub 12-inch fish, but there's also enough 14 to 16 inchers in the lake to keep things very interesting. To catch a limit of kokanee at Stampede during the spring and summer months, all you need is some standard offerings, some hoochies, some spinners, some coconuts, some dodgers, a little bit of corn, and a sonar unit, and you are in business. Find the marks, show them the lures, and you're going to be yelling fish on. It's as simple as that. I mean, the lake is full of salmon. Beyond the kokanee, the lake used to be known for producing big double-digit browns that ranged all the way up to 20-plus pounds. Those huge browns don't seem to be in the lake anymore, but fish in the 5 to 6 pound class are still pretty common. Likewise with the Mackinaw, it used to produce a lot of double-digit macks, but there was a die-off in the Mackinaw population a few years ago, and while you'll still encounter some 6 to 7 pound Mackinaw, there's not as many in the lake as there used to be. Lahontan cutthroat trout were planted in the lake about a decade ago, and they've really come on strong. I've heard of fish up to 5 pounds being caught recently, and they seem to get a little bit bigger every year. So that's a real bright spot. Beyond those two species, the kokanee and the cutthroats, there is a sleeper rainbow trout population in the lake. A lot of the year they seem to be absent. Probably the best time to go out and hook some rainbows is first thing in the spring or in the fall before the snow really starts to fly, and some of them are big fish, up to 6, 7 pounds in some cases. The average rainbow probably runs about 2 pounds. They kind of top out at 4, but much bigger fish are possible. Trollers get their share, but in the fall, Shore casters nail a lot of nice trout there. Check out my buddy here, Chris Hammond. He was up there casting a crocodile spoon a few years ago, and he caught this toad of a rainbow while casting off the dam. So there's opportunities for boaters and shore anglers, when the water temperature is down in the spring and in the fall. It's just a great place. I encourage you to visit Stampede Reservoir if you've never been there. I do want to throw out a word of caution, though. Throughout the spring and for the summer, it's calmer in the fall, but in the spring and in the summer, the lake is notorious for strong afternoon winds. The lake is a great destination for small boaters, float tubers, kayakers, guys in canoes, but you've got to be aware. When you get up around, noon, you got to start thinking about getting off the lake because the wind almost always comes up and it almost always gets strong, and it comes up fast, after lunchtime. It can go from being flat calm to white caps in a matter of minutes, and you just need to have your ducks in a row. I got caught out in the middle of the lake in a small tin boat one time, and it was downright scary by the time I got in and got back on land. So just be aware of the afternoon wind. There's just kind of a valley there, and when it starts heating up in the valley, the wind really starts sucking through those mountains, and it can get ugly on Stampede in a real quick hurry. The terrain surrounding the lake is awesome. You're up around 6,000 feet. The evergreens are there. It's just beautiful, high Sierra scenery. So if you haven't been to Stampede, put it on your bucket list. It's one of those places you have to visit. Take the kokanee gear. You're going to get lots of action. You're going to get a nice kokanee dinner out of the deal, and you're going to have a lot of fun. And you might hook into one of those cutthroats too, which is a really special experience. They're really cool fish. So in closing, you won't be disappointed. Plan a trip to Stampede Reservoir if you haven't been there. If you have been there, get up there again real soon. Take some of those kokanee out of the lake. There's plenty to go around. Even the small guys are great to eat, and you're not going to overfish it. Not this year. It is teeming with salmon. Anyway, that's our destination for this week. We'll be back next week with another destination. Set a course to Stampede Reservoir. You'll be glad you did.